Hey guys, it's Jay. Welcome back to my channel, where we discuss the popular culture of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's been a long time, guys, and this has been a long time coming. This is my review of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Ultimate Skeletor. He-Man Classic Collection. They were released a long time ago by MRJ Collector, which was part of Mattel. And I really missed out on that line. And I'm really glad that the company Super 7 has been able to bring them back and release them in this Ultimates Edition, which we'll get to in a little bit about what the Ultimates Edition actually has. But for now, let's open up the package and see what's inside. They come in this mailer box, which has become a standard for the He-Man and Masters of the Universe Collector's Edition. And I'm really happy that they take such care in understanding what collectors really want. This box is pretty Spartan. I mean, it's just got the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe logo, the actual figure name. This one specifically is branded with Super 7 down here and indicates that it's an adult collector item. If we spin it around, again, pretty Spartan, nothing really here to show, just some safety concerns, the logo again, and that this is a recyclable box made of recyclable materials. All right, let's get into it. Okay, well, this one's pretty simple. It's just a sealed tab, which should be simple, but it's not. I'm kidding. All right, so then we just flip the tab open. Oh, I see something very exciting. Oh, wow, that is amazing. So I'm going to put that down for a second. Anyone who grew up in the 80s remembers this box art. This box art was so iconic in the toy aisles of the 1980s. The Masters of the Universe, I guess it's exploding rocks. They seem like they're just exploding out behind the character. And of course, the wonderful Masters of the Universe logo. You really just can't. It's so iconic. It's just amazing. You cannot misidentify this box. And then there's a gorgeous starfield in the back. So, Skeletor, man, he looks incredible just inside the box. It really is a shame that these particular boxes and the bubble cards are, glued to the back, because I know that a lot of collectors have complained in the past, and actually even now, that they would love to be able to keep these boxes in pristine condition so they can take the figure out and put the figure back in to display on their walls. But such as it is, it still looks amazing. The presentation is great, and in this particular instance, I am not keeping him in the box. I'm definitely opening Skeletor so that I can have a closer look at him. The back of the box showcases some amazing artwork, and again, fans of the series are going to love this. We can see Skeletor here in one of his traditional Filmation poses, and we actually have a callback to the original boxes back in the 1980s, where they would display additional figures in the line, other figures that you could collect. Now, this is kind of funny because some of these figures at the time of this release were no longer available, but it's really funny, particularly the Christmas episode He-Man. I believe that by the time this figure was released, this figure was no longer available. It also shows the action features of the character, some play features that you can actually expect. It doesn't really showcase too many of the other accessories, but I guess as a kid, you're supposed to figure out that you can play with those yourself. All right, so let's have a quick look at what's inside. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the Lord of Destruction himself, Skeletor. He is impressive, I have to say. The sculpting work on this is incredible. I mean, honestly, they were able to capture all of the features of the Filmation cartoon, which is my favorite by all means. Everything here is exactly where you expect it to be. The way the details are here in his bone cross, the minimal detailing that they actually put on the actual armor itself, his musculature, everything is very minimalistic. There's not really too much detail compared to some of the other releases in the line. The attention to detail in his face, though, is incredible, as it really does capture a lot of the Filmation version, which all of us grew up watching as kids. He doesn't have his webbed feet, much the same way that the Filmation designs had simplified them, which is really fun, actually. Pretty much the same height as most characters in the line. If we bring up a tape measure right now, he stands just about 7, a little bit higher than 7 inches. And the colors here are just incredible. He's got that wonderful blue tone to his skin. The purples in the armor are wonderfully captured. Again, truly reminiscent of what we saw in the Filmation version. And then that bright neon skeleton face of his. It's really, really quite amazing. Specifically here with the head sculpt, I really am impressed at the way they actually took so much time detailing the figure's face. It's really evident that they paid a lot of attention to the way the character looked on the show. The sunken-in eyes, the actual teeth position, you know, the blacks that were used in and around to really pop out the color of the actual face. Very, very impressive. And again, the 4 horsemen who actually sculpted this character, just amazing. The way the teeth are actually in line, all the attention to detail in terms of, like, you know, the scowl on his face, the actual brow line. And again, this is a skeleton character, but he really is indicative of what Skeletor did look like on the show. I am so impressed with the amount of detail, or in some cases, the lack of detail that they put in here, but are still able to capture the essence of the character. Last but not least is an interesting addition to the figure. And, you know, I sort of appreciate this, but I have a few problems with it. But let's get to it anyway. The last addition, which was included with this character, is his additional bone face. This is interesting in so much that we get an extra face, which is always a bonus. I love it when you know, these collectible characters have extra faces. But this time, I'm not really too sure they hit the mark. What they were trying to do here was they were trying to capture the laughing hooded face of Skeletor in the beginning of the show when he goes ha 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 ha, right? But I'm not sure they really captured it. They did their best. You know, it's difficult to actually get this kind of detail in a character, but you know what? There is just something extremely difficult about nailing a particular moment in the show. And in this one, I don't think they really got it. As you can see, just comparing it here, you see this face of the laughing Skeletor, and then we go back to the regular Skeletor, and you know, the jawline is dropped a little bit. It's sort of smirking, but come on, it's a skeleton's face. I mean, it's really hard to capture those subtle little details. The show, you know, the wonderful Alan Oppenheimer, he was able to just put life into a character which really had no emotion in his face, and with this one, again, it's a difficult sell. I'm not really sure it captured it, but I can see the laughing portion of it at this angle. But when you throw his head back, you know, it's not really. It sort of works, it sort of doesn't. But you know what? Great try, Super 7. Great try, 4 Horsemen Designs. This was a really great addition, and I really do appreciate that it's included. But you know, it's just maybe just fell a little bit short. But wonderful sculpting again and again. A wonderful addition to have with the character itself. So I'm not really going to talk too much about his articulation. I think that a lot of other channels have done that by this time. But I will go through, you know, a few of the basics. You know, he does have arms which go up and down. You know, they swing out with a ratchet joint to about 90 degrees, which is great. He's got swivels at the wrist, as you can see here. The wrists actually go back about that much and forward about that much and back about that much. The elbow joint, wonderfully ratcheted. Again, about a 90 degree tilt right there. His head, let me just put these down. His head swivels side to side. It's got a bit of a tilt here. You really can't do the laugh, as I said, the throwback head, but wonderful motion here to the left and right. The actual armor here, it actually moves as he moves, which is really great. A little bit more motion you can get with the actual ab crunch here, but that allows for a little bit more of the throwback in the head, but not too much. So as I said, the ab crunch, he can go all the way down that way, and then a little bit further back, not too much. His legs, they do go about almost 90 degrees forward and a little bit further back, not too much. The knees do bend 90 degrees, as we can see there. Wonderful ratchets again, really nice and tight. The feet can go a little bit forward, as we can see there, and they can go on a ratchet joint this far back. Great for posing. And of course they do come on a wonderful hinged ankle joint, which is really great. A lot of people have said that this ankle joint is so much better than the ones that were included in the original classics, so yay for that. His waist doesn't really have a swivel, but his legs are on a bit of a swivel joint here, as we can see there. Great stuff. Specifically what has been highlighted in this collection, the characters themselves were released with very few accessories. I believe Skeletor here only really came with his Havoc Staff. In this particular collection, they have come with multitudes of different accessories. The first accessory I want to take a look at quickly is the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. Now, some of you will probably remember this as being one of the very first items that was in the show, and Skeletor would actually use this ray to try and make He-Man disappear in the show, the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. The box itself is wonderfully rendered, and the tiny little diamond here, the gem, it's colored in a, looks like a really light blue. Now, some people have said that they would have preferred it to be you know, translucent, transparent. But you know what? I really do think, again, going in line with the Filmation style, it really does capture the actual essence of the show. I like the way the box is just hinged up and the way it looks and sculpted. It's a very simple design. The inside of the box actually has a bit of a darker blue coloring on the inside here, if you can see that. But the box itself is well rendered and presented in a wonderfully wonderful homage to the actual show. This is a great addition to this character. Now, one of the fun accessories here as well, included with Skeletor, is his bone sword. This is a wonderful detail to the character, as he didn't really use a sword which looked like the power sword in the show. He mainly used this particular sword, well, if he ever used the sword at all. This sword served as Skeletor's main weapon other than his Havoc Staff when fighting He-Man, which is pretty important as he did not have his own version of the power sword at many times during the show. You can see the wonderful detailing here on the bone hilt. Very reminiscent of the show. The actual pommel itself is a bone, almost like a femur, the end of the femur, which is really interesting. And, you know, the sculpting itself is wonderfully rendered. I really appreciate the fact that Super 7 included this in the collection. Really great stuff. A really fun addition, again, is the Battle Axe. Now, this was an interesting item, to say the least. The axe itself was featured in a few episodes, and it actually, at first, well, I believe in the very first episode of the Masters of the Universe, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, this was actually what Skeletor was primarily using. He was not actually using his Havoc Staff for the most part, which, you know, is interesting in and of itself. There is a wonderful crystal right here at the top, and this actually had some sort of mystical powers in lieu of, again, his Havoc Staff. Now, this axe is actually more reminiscent of the axe that He-Man used to hold. And that's very interesting, considering that He-Man in the show almost never used, if I can't even remember, as far as I can tell, in the show, I am having a very hard time remembering whether or not He-Man actually had or even used an axe. I don't think I'd be wrong in saying that He-Man actually never used his axe in the show. And this actually is a wonderful callback to the toy in the Mattel version in the 80s, as Skeletor actually ended up using it in the show. Wonderful addition to the character and wonderful addition in this set. Really glad the Super 7 included this. And then, of course, there is his signature Havoc Staff. This, again, is a wonderful, detailed piece provided by the guys over at Super 7. This Filmation, again, is not as detailed as the original one. It actually has a lot less details. But what's there is beautifully rendered. We can see the ram horns here. Again, wonderfully sculpted. The sunken-in eyes detailed with a little bit of black so that it really showcases what it looked like in the show. I love the little nose details here. They're wonderfully rendered. Just more of a cutout, really. And again, the simplified teeth here really, really shows what it looked like in the show. I love the little pass-through. You can actually see right through it. That's a wonderful detail right there for the actual Havoc Staff. The staff itself is colored in a... it's almost like a really... almost fuchsia kind of pink tone. I think this is reminiscent of the show. I believe the Havoc Staff that Skeletor had was actually more of a pink version, and it has this wonderful detailing here with the ribs here and the actual pommel right at the end. Wonderful addition. Of course, the signature weapon of Skeletor as he appeared in the show. Skeletor does not come with any additional hands, which is it's a hit or a miss, I guess, if you want to talk about that. But they are sculpted quite well, the ones that he's included with, and they do hold the weapons quite nicely. The thing is that with mine in particular, they are clawed a little bit too much, maybe. So forcing the, you see what I mean? Forcing the, you have to actually bend the thumb out a little bit. And thankfully the plastic isn't that brittle. So bending it out a little bit, you can really, oh man. This is literally the first time I'm trying to do this, and I'm doing it on camera, which is always terrible. So you can really have to force him to, come on, Skeletor, work with me here. So yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with that one there. So you have to actually, and I don't like doing that. I don't like forcing the plastic out. So yeah, in some ways, the hands that he's included with are a little bit finicky. You really have to play with them around a bit and maybe, you know, loosen them. So of course he fell down. You have to loosen them a little bit more, you know. Oh, I also didn't mention that he's got some great detailing on his fingers. He's actually got black fingernails, just like in the show. Didn't mention that, but with a lot of this rubbing, I'm actually kind of scared that I might actually be taking off some of that wonderful detail. Yeah. Okay, so just as a quick note for everybody, and I'm not sure if anybody's actually said this in the reviews, but for me, this is kind of a bummer. I really don't want to have to bend this thing too far back, but unfortunately it seems like that's the only way to do it. And the best way I've found to do it is just to, without ruining the paint detail that's on here, the best way I've found to do it is just to like take one of the accessories and really just sort of finagle your way into the hand, kind of like that. It's not ideal, and I don't recommend it for everybody. Really, it's your preference. You have to figure that out on your own, and you have to feel as if you're comfortable doing that, because again, these are not cheap figures. I'm not, you know, let's not you know, beat around the bush. These things are, you know, US, I think like $35 that was paid for it, and here in Canadian it's even more. So, you know, it's one of those things you really have to decide, you know, what you want to do with your figures and how much playtime you actually want to deal with it. But as I said, the easiest way for me right now at this stage is just to sort of almost force them into position. But once they actually have a grip on the actual accessory itself, it's in there tight. It's not, that thing's not going anywhere. So really great stuff on that end, but honestly, I wonder if there was a bit of a different way of doing that. And again, if you want to remove the head, you basically just take a good grip on the figure, pop it off like that, grab your additional head, and pop it back on. Just like that. And now Skeletor is laughing Skeletor. Well guys, that'll about do it for my look at the Super 7 Filmation version of Skeletor. He really is quite indicative of the actual Filmation Skeletor, which I grew up watching and loving as a kid. I am really ecstatic and grateful that Super 7 was able to bring this character out and visualize him as he did in the cartoon itself. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a like. It really helps me out. If you have any comments and suggestions on anime, toys, collectibles, or anything else you'd like me to review, please leave that in the comment section below. And consider subscribing, as it helps YouTube to realize that I'm doing a good job and that you guys enjoy my work. Well guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Geek proud.